Hello, my boils, my ghouls, and my zools. Welcome back to Kalash Kamaz. So today we're going to be talking about, well, why an AK? And that's just not something I ever really talked about much on this channel outside of talking about AKs. So, well, let's get to that. What is with this obsession? I suppose being that this is my channel, the best perspective I have on why I like AKs is, going to be my perspective. But, obviously I can share some perspectives I've heard around and, maybe my analysis on other people's perceptions and whatnot. I'm not trying to speak for nobody, but we have plenty out there in the world to look at as far as a variety of AKs and, why would you choose one or the other? And we have a variety of rifles on the market as far as AKs, Brens, you got, of obviously ARs, you got fucking Mosins and SKSs. Now, why does someone choose the rifle that they want to choose? Well, firstly, let's get this out of the way. Yeah, this shirt's ridiculous, man. I found it at a hood shop and I just had to get it. So let's get that out of the way. All right. Well, I have been noticing quite a bit that when you see a, let's say, popular content creator make a video about AKs, and I'm not just talking about the most recent that, this is clearly a bit of a reference to, but in general, you see a lot of takes from very non-AK people about their opinions on AKs. And that's fine. You can have your opinions and your analysis and all that. That's completely and utterly fine. But when it gets down to it, our community has a bit of an expertise in the weapon. And what are the reasons why we prefer this thing so much? Well, firstly, I think the answer is it's cool is a perfectly fine answer. I think that's a perfectly fine answer. And when it comes to the context of what the fuck does cool have to do with it? Look, we're civilians. Most of us were civilians. Yeah, some of you were active duty, but vast majority of us are civilians. The U.S. military is very rarely, yes, they have, but very rarely running AKs. Police in the U.S., very rarely running AKs. Actually, when I was a commercial fisherman, our local department did have AKs. So when it gets down to arguments over, its handling in weather or what it's superior at or what it may not be superior at, I think that's kind of a moot point because a lot of us are out here to just have fun. And, part of that fun is increasing our skill level in many various areas. That's going to be shooting, reloading. It's going to be just movement in general. A lot of us do competitions, and the ones who don't, we don't usually just stand there and plink, that's just, it's, why would you do that with your AK? That's bizarre. Sure, there's plenty of people that don't have access to an outdoor range where they can do the things like, say you see on this channel. I suggest you go find a shooting club. If you're stuck at indoor ranges and you think there's nowhere for you to shoot, I'll bet you bottom dollar most people have a shooting club around them that they can go to and actually achieve the kind of training that they want to achieve. Now, going back to why it's cool a good answer, I think it absolutely is. I think it absolutely is. If you think it's cool, that's totally fine. I think you should be versed on a variety of weapons, and if your favorite one happens to be an underdog, I think that's completely okay. Every single weapon has its advantages or disadvantages. There is no best rifle. That's just the truth. Is a AR better than an AK for a lot of situations? Yeah, of course. Of course, if you're going to war, of course, grab yourself an AR, I suppose unless, as the video I referenced, it's unless you're going to the snow. But sure, you got ways to mitigate that as well, again, we're civilians. We ain't going to war, the people's shit hit the fan scenarios. These are just in case. We stay prepared for shit hitting the fan. But do we think it's going to hit the fan tomorrow? No. Do we think it's going to hit the fan in our lifetime? No. But, anything can happen. Shit. Look at Serbia. Shit can hit the fan real fast. So, you can't compare you know, country to country and culture to culture and whatnot very well. But it's just the fact that flashpoints happen in history. So of course you got to stay ready. As some people say, stay vigilant. There's plenty of ways people say. Various versions of staying vigilant, staying ready, or you hear the cornier. What do you call it? Punisher skull type folks saying stay dangerous. It's in my opinion, I think whatever rifle you want to run is perfectly fine. Now, are there advantages with an AK? Absolutely, absolutely, and those would be subjective. That's just the truth of the matter. Do I prefer a rock and lock mag? Yeah, I do. Does a rock and lock AR work fine for me? Yeah, it does. I mean, I haven't seen one on this channel, or shown one on this channel, obviously, but I think they're cool. They work well. Direct impingement, pretty neat. But, also you might prefer the function of a piston system. That's just something I tend to prefer. So, would a rock and lock piston driven AR work for me? It's not really an AR at that point, is it? So my catchphrase. So anyhow, I think a lot of the arguments against AKs, that you see from some of the more, popular gun channels that don't just deal with AKs or aren't really in this bubble we're in, I think they are a little ridiculous. I mean, I personally don't hold any of these weird opinions about, this AR versus AK thing. There's a lot of good weapons out there, and I've seen a lot of people and running them mind-blowingly because they trained on them. I'm a big believer in you can train around a lot of things. I mean, it's one of the reasons I love an AK. You are the underdog inherently. Straight up it's going to be a little more expensive for you. It's going to take a little more training for you. But in the end, I think you have a very good weapon. Am I going to say one's better than the other? For the millionth time, no. For the millionth time, no. But when it comes down to the view that, there's a incompatibility with modern accessories, that's a very fuddy kind of boomer take. That's very past. These days you have plenty of options. I got a shelf right here full of parts. So, if you want to hook rails on, I think it's absolutely ridiculous to say that you don't have many options. You got plenty of options. So I think the accessory things kind of moot at this point, especially when you're making that point while showing a rifle with a Sure Shot rail on it. I mean, I personally, that's preferential. It's not my choice of rail, the Sure Shots. I'm not really into them myself, but that's an option. There are plenty of options. Do you have to go for something, full length, mid length, or even just, standard length, railed handguard to achieve what you want? I mean, of course you got to choose which length you want. That's kind of a stupid thing to say. Should you do that? Yeah, of course you have to get the accessories on there. When it comes to optics mounting, you have plenty of options. I mean, everybody knows they got the side rail. There are, these days, this is not 2012, you have plenty of rails, the rail dust covers that actually work. Without throwing out some brands. I mean, you had the first generation Texas weapons systems and the second generations that didn't work all that well. It's been a long time since then. These days, there's a lot of rail dust covers that work very, very, very well. Now, when it comes to mounting your optic forward, an Ultimac is a perfectly fine thing. It's great. Do you have a rail all the way over? I mean, outside of a Galil Ace or something like that, when it comes to the AK world, no, not really. I mean, you got the Krebs, that's another option for you if you want like a full length rail and an AK. But me personally, the reason that doesn't bother me, not having full rail across the entire thing, and you have your iron sights right here in the middle, and a lot of the times you'll see these sectioned off, pieces where your iron sights in the middle. The reason that does not bother me whatsoever is because when have you ever seen a rail just fully stacked? I mean, it's just too heavy. You're not going to put that many accessories on it. When it comes to like the standard combo of, light, laser, optic, and maybe magnifier or something like that, you don't really have problems anymore with an AK. Yeah, that did used to be an issue, but it is now 2024. So I don't really feel like that kind of thing needs convincing. You have the options. When it comes to talking about loose tolerances and allowing dirt in and all that, inherently you do have an advantage in the platform due to the piston system. It's just a good system. There's a reason a lot of guns have piston systems. Is direct impingement or a piston better, one better than the other? No. They contextually, they both have their strengths, they both have their weaknesses. So I just, I think the moot point of, this lets in dirt, that's not true. It's just plain out not true. All rifles get dirty. There's no perfect rifle. Now, when it gets to muzzle devices, these days you do have a lot of options with muzzle devices. You have a lot of options when it comes to suppressor mounts and stuff like that. And also, when it comes down to it, talking about the price of an AK, they should be expensive, because when it comes down to the comparison of that AR versus AK thing, you're not building an AR, you're assembling the thing. There is no riveting, there's no welding, there's none of that with an AR. You just clap it together with some simple hand tools. Even if you go and get yourself a ghost gunner or something like that to make your own receivers from a billet, you're still just assembling at the end of the day. You're not milling the thing out by hand, which every single AK manufacturer will have some hand milling going on. That's just the truth of the matter. The rivets, you're going to be doing those by hand. The whole thing about canted sights. Yeah, you do this by hand. There's a reason these are expensive. And when you look at a mass-produced thing like a PSA AK-104 as some kind of comparison to the platform, okay, take a shit stick and compare it to everything else. That's a silly thing to me, especially when you have problems related to that manufacturer inherent in the video you're trying to make a point about. Now, it just, when people talk shit or have these weird ideas about AKs, it doesn't offend me, but it is just factually strange to me. That whole point about, they're expensive, they do this, they don't do this as well, the accessory is hard to find. I mean, it's such an old early 2000s type of take that, I feel it warrants a little bit of talking about, because, we talk all the time in the AK community about, what's better, what's worse. And, everybody agrees. Of course, when it comes down to a lot of scenarios, especially a force-on-force scenario, ARs do extremely well. You have extremely low recoil. There's a lot you can do to them. They're extremely modular. But it's not the same weapon. It's a ridiculous comparison. So why do we got to keep going with these stupid comparisons? I think it's ridiculous. I have seen people that run SKSs and Garands really goddamn fast and have placed very high in matches. Now, are they taking that thing into freaking, Kharkiv and fucking fighting with it? Well, maybe. But, were they doing it in Afghanistan or some shit? Iraq? No, absolutely not. So, it's a moot point. It's a moot argument. Now, one thing that I do inherently love about the argument is it does spurn a lot of conversation about the platforms themselves. And I think that's always fun to talk about. It's like Let's talk about the benefits of pistons versus direct impingement, long stroke versus short stroke pistons. You got a lot of options in the gun world. So I think why? Because it's cool is it's a perfectly acceptable answer, honestly. You still get your fundamentals down. Sure, yeah, you may not be able to reload an AR as fast as you can an AK if you're an AR guy, but I think anybody that's run an AR knows a couple hours of training that reload and you're pretty fine. It's not rocket science. Is it my primary platform? Have I made mistakes on them? Of course, everybody has. But it's just my preference for a number of reasons. I can articulate those in the fact that number one, I do just really like the fact that you have fixed stocks. I do really prefer the iron sights on an AK over, yeah, I just prefer them over every other iron sight. Iron sights are extremely important to me as I am primarily an iron sight shooter. Do I really need a co-witness optic? I I'll do that on my ARs, but it's not necessary. I generally, as you can see, run a high-rise optic, not for the vision, not for the purposes of night vision, but mostly for the quickness of the draw. I'm a competition shooter. Most of our targets are within 30 feet, so if you can get on that draw real quick, it's just saving you a second. I mean, that's all it is. It's a game of time. So I think there's a lot of inherent reasons. Rock and lock system. I prefer the rock and lock system because it's extremely stable and you're not really losing a ton of time. This, a second will save your life shit. It's horse shit. That is stuff said by people who have never been shot or never been shot at or never fired a shot in anger. I say that in general, but let's get real. It's a stupid thing. This, the second will save your life thing. What, against paper? Come on, we're just playing games here. Let's stop acting like this is reality. We're training for real things. Of course, we're playing a game that sets you up, very well for real things. And I mean, a lot of us have fun doing this, yes. But I mean, at the end of the day, when we're out there in competitions, is everybody just, hardcore on this all the time? Like, I'm going to do this the best I can possibly do. I need the fastest. Yeah, there are shooters like that and they're fucking boring. We call them FUDs, so pick any weapon you want and run the hell out of it. That's all I got to say about that. It doesn't fucking matter. Straight up. I always reference, there's more content that I can put out faster on Instagram. So, I'll do that quite a bit. Right top pinned video right there. I'll do a fairly quick reload doing the old school bucket with the magazine reload or the, Russian reload, or the Spetsnaz reload. And, my point to posting that, as I even put in the description, was there are these type of content makers that have made these, tactical proclamations about, this is the best way, this is the fastest way. And I posit you can train anything to be comparable. If you train hard enough, you can train about anything to be comparable. So, I mean, as I said, I do a lot of competitions. And as I said, I have seen plenty of people that have run SKSs damn near as fast as an AR, and it's mind-blowing when they do. When someone's really on that reload, it is incredible. Of course, it looks cool too, but I mean, seeing that underdog really just, they have a disadvantage at their reload speed. They have a disadvantage at certain ergonomics. These competitions are generally based on very close targets that you have to shoot very fast. So maybe an SKS isn't the best for that. But as far as, what we shoot would be like a mid-range distance, they excel pretty well. What we here in the AK world call long distance is kind of a joke, and it's not even dissimilar in the AR world. You got a lot of competitions where their long range is like 200 yards, and that's not long range. You know, if you're not having a lob around, you're not really doing long range, you know. I'm saying contextually with an AK. You know, you have to lob the thing sometimes. That's some long range, you know. That's when you're getting, you know, 500 plus. I, you know, just my kind of general thing. I don't really think 200 yards is long range. A lot of us can do that. A lot of us. Sure, some of us have vision problems, but a lot of us can do that. And you can train around these vision problems. I don't have great vision. I mean, look at plenty of my videos. I wear glasses. I just need a new prescription and haven't gone and got new glasses yet. You know, that's all it is. So I'm dealing with poor vision right now, which is why I use that example. Plenty of people with way worse vision than I do that do very well, not being able to see very well. And that's really all I had to it. You know, I don't want to make a, you know, an argument, but I do want to really put it out there that when it comes to firearms, you have a lot of terminally online takes in this space, you know, and, you know, as the, you know, in the past couple of years, there's a very applicable term for that that's been popping up all over the internet. Touch grass. You know, that's what a lot of these folks need to do. And by touching grass, I don't mean just getting out and shooting. If you want to have such an opinion on the thing and be so hard-headed about something like that and, you know, act as an authority of some sort at all, maybe you should run the thing and actually know what a quality one is. Because, you know, showing me a goddamn PSA 104 and then trying to talk about AKs as your rifle's fucking jamming, some of you can barely even fucking load the thing, and, you know, calling him cool guy reloads, you know, but like, whatever, dude, you know, and then to go on, you know, Rifle Dynamics website to reference their prices. Rifle Dynamics sells very expensive rifles where I can't say in the past year and a half I can't say anything about their manufacturing, but when I was actively seeing their rifles more, damn near none of them run right. I mean, that was just a thing. So, you know, they didn't build very good rifles quite often, and they're very expensive. They have some claims to their website. It's full of red flags, you know. If you want to have some kind of opinion like that, go to someone like Mark Krebs, man. You know, Krebs Custom, you know, there's a good example of, you know, fairly expensive rifles that they're very, very well built, and, you know, there's no bullshit to it. They don't have no weird, I'll just call them lies, you know. They don't tell you they have a 60-point inspection system or nothing like that. You know, they just put out damn good guns, and they don't have to say weird claims like that. So to go to some kind of, you know, Walmart of AKs and try to compare it to the quality of, you know, something smaller, singular, you know, maybe call it family-owned, boutique, local, I think that is ridiculous. If I need to explain why I think that's ridiculous, then go shoot guns more. Go touch grass. Now, outside of that, touching grass, I mean, having a good handle on what is a good AK, I think is extremely important if you're going to have that opinion. You know, you're going to have things like straight sights. Of course, we've all had issues with canted sights and wassers and stuff like that. And I mean, if you can still zero the rifle, do I give a fuck? Hell no. If it's zeroed, it's zeroed. Zero is zero. Now, when it comes to other little quality things, you know, you'll get a smoothness in your reloads because of a nicely cut magwell, a nicely cut magazine release. You'll get nicely dimpled receiver and, nicely pressed rivets and a dimpled receiver. This particular one actually is a PSA, and I can actually show you right here. It is not dimpled because that is not a swell neck rivet. And it's a shit stick. It's a shit stick. I bought this thing for like $500 straight up. And that's why I'm pulling it up, because this is a manufacturer that was in the video that kind of prompted me to make this. You know, this particular one, you have one of the quality issues. rivets aren't pressed hard enough, and you can definitely see that. You get lips on the rivets themselves. Personally, I never really cared about lipping on the rivets, but you know, apparently a lot of people do, and I would admit that the perfect rivet doesn't have a lip, but if it has one, I'm usually not going crazy. You know, you'll see rivets generally pressed into where it almost looks like it's crushed the receiver a little bit, because it has. That's a pretty well pressed rivet. You don't need a perfectly straight receiver to have a quality AK. You know, other things, you know, you're gonna have the fitment of your trunnions, you know, your rear trunnion and your front trunnion. One of them holds in your stock, the other one holds in your barrel. So, you know, you got a lot of trash trunnions on the market that don't really fit, you know, a lot of stuff right. That is a problem we have in the AK world, and that's quality parts. A lot of our parts are coming from either surplus or, you know, people that are taking it under their, you know, their wing as a personal project to get some really damn good parts out. You know, you got AK stuff making their 100 series trunnions, and those are pretty much, you know, that's what you can get, you know, as far as not trying to spend $500 on a real 100 series rear trunnion. And when it comes to front trunnions, you have some options, but not a ton of them, you know? So a lot of us are buying WBP out of necessity rather than quality. Very luckily, WBP stuff is pretty high quality. Now, when it comes to receivers, you know, as I said, these things are built, not bought. These things are, you know, assembled by hand. They're not, I say assembled, built by hand. They're not assembled, you know? So when it comes to that, I mean, yeah, we do have some issues with parts quality. You know, there are not too many options. Famously, WBP has some proprietary dimensions for their stuff. When it comes to our receivers, we have an issue with quality receivers for the building market. You know, when it comes to the manufacturers, yeah, I'm sure they run into the same thing. You know, when it comes to larger manufacturers that are pumping out AKs, but the vast majority of these things, notwithstanding PSA, are coming from builders, private builders, maybe a shop with 1, 2, 3 people, something like that. No staff of 100 people. So I just think contextually, it's there's no reason not to run an AK, as there is no reason not to run an AR. So why AK? Sure, because it's fucking cool, but why AK? Because it's a gun.